The massive alien ship hung in space like a floating city. Its hull stretched for kilometers, covered in elegant curves and gleaming metal that caught the light from nearby stars. Inside its command center, dozens of alien beings worked it there, stations with quiet efficiency. The air hummed with the soft sounds of advanced technology. Vel touched his communication device with one of his 4 arms. As captain of the dreadnought Eternal Peace, he had conducted first contact with over 30 primitive species. The routine never changed. New species always submitted when they saw the size and power of the Harmony fleet. "Sir, the human vessel is approaching," his weapons officer reported. The alien's large eyes focused on the main screen, showing a tiny dot moving toward them. Vel made a sound that might have been laughter. "That small thing? Are you certain it's actually a ship?" The dot grew larger as it came closer. What they saw made several crew members whisper among themselves. The human vessel looked like it had been built from spare parts. Its hull showed patches and repairs. Strange pipes and wires ran along its outside. It moved with jerky motions, as if its engines barely worked. "How did such a primitive craft even reach space?" asked the navigation officer. "Focus on your duties," Vel commanded. "Every species starts somewhere. We will teach these humans their proper place in the galaxy." The tiny human ship docked with the massive alien vessel. Vel and his honor guard waited in the main meeting chamber. The room was designed to impress visitors with its size and grandeur. Tall windows showed the stars beyond. The ceiling rose high above their heads. Everything was built to make newcomers feel small and insignificant. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 humans stepped through, wearing simple uniforms that looked plain next to the elaborate clothing of the alien delegation. The woman, in front, had short brown hair and calm eyes. She walked forward without showing any sign of fear or amazement at the grand chamber around her. "I am Ambassador Kate Rivers," she said in a clear voice. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Vel studied the humans carefully. They seemed so ordinary. No special features, no obvious weapons, no signs of advanced technology. Their skin looked soft and vulnerable. How had such weak creatures even survived long enough to reach space? "I am Captain Vel of the Harmony Fleet," he replied, using his most formal tone. "We represent the Galactic Council, which maintains peace and order. Throughout known space, your species will now learn its place in our civilization." Kate nodded politely. "We're eager to learn about galactic society." What followed was the standard presentation. Vel explained how the council worked, how trade was regulated, and how new species were expected to follow established rules. The humans listened without interrupting. They asked reasonable questions about technology sharing and territorial boundaries. Everything proceeded exactly as it always did. Then Vel reached the final part of his speech. Of course, compliance with council directives is not optional. Species that refuse to follow galactic law face immediate consequences. We call this orbital adjustment. Kate's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. "Could you explain what orbital adjustment means?" "When a planet refuses to cooperate, we use our ships to adjust their attitude from orbit," Vel said with casual confidence. "Most species require only a small demonstration before they understand the wisdom of compliance." The other 2 humans, who had been standing quietly behind their ambassador, exchanged quick glances. Kate was silent for a long moment, her eyes focused on something beyond the alien captain. "I need to consult with my ship," Kate said finally. Vel gestured toward a communication panel. "Please, use our equipment." "Thank you, but I prefer our own systems," Kate replied. She touched a small device on her wrist. "Tom, this is Kate. Status report." A human voice crackled through the tiny speaker. "All systems green, Ambassador. Waiting for your signal." "Understood. Rivers out." Kate turned back to face the assembled aliens. Her diplomatic smile had disappeared, replaced by something much colder. Captain Vel, I appreciate your time and the information you've shared with us. However, humanity respectfully declines membership in the Galactic Council under the terms you've described. Several aliens made shocked sounds. Vel's skin color shifted to a deeper shade, which his species did when experiencing strong emotions. You cannot refuse, Vel said, his voice rising. No species has ever refused council membership. You have seen our power. Your tiny ship cannot stand against the might of the Harmony fleet. Kate's smile returned, but it held no warmth. Captain, I think there may be some confusion about our situation here. Perhaps you should check your sensors again. What are you talking about? Vel demanded. He gestured to his sensor operator. Report! The alien at the sensor station worked frantically at his controls. His large eyes grew even wider as he stared at his displays. Sir, I'm detecting... This cannot be correct. What is it? Vel snapped. Sir, there are hundreds of small objects around our ship. They were not there a moment ago, but now. The operator's voice trailed off. Impossible! Vel turned to look at the main screen. The view of space around his ship had changed. What had appeared empty before now swarmed with tiny vessels, each one smaller than the human ship that had docked with them. They moved in perfect formation, circling the massive alien vessel like predators around prey. Kate spoke into her wrist device again. Tom, please send the standard message to all Harmony Fleet vessels. The response came immediately over the chamber's communication system, a young human voice speaking with calm professionalism. Attention Harmony Fleet. This is the Terran Space Navy. Your vessels are now surrounded. We strongly advise against any aggressive actions. Vel stared at the screen in shock. More small human ships were appearing around every vessel in his fleet. They seemed to materialize from empty space, as if they had been hiding in plain sight. How? He whispered. Kate Rivers walked to the large window and looked out at the swarm of human ships surrounding the alien fleet. Each vessel was tiny compared to the massive alien dreadnought, but together they moved with deadly purpose. You asked how such weak creatures survived long enough to reach space, Captain. The answer is simple. We learned to be very good at not being where our enemies expected us to be. She turned back to face the alien delegation, and her eyes held the hard edge of a species that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain through intelligence, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to give up. Now then, shall we discuss new terms for first contact? The command center of the Eternal Peace had gone completely silent. Every alien officer stared at their displays in disbelief. The massive view screen showed dozens of small human vessels moving around their ship like angry insects around a disturbed hive. Vel's communications officer broke the silence with a voice that trembled with fear. Sir, I'm receiving similar reports from all ships in the fleet. Every vessel is surrounded by these small craft. The captain's forearms moved frantically across his control panel. How many ships are we talking about? Over 300 small vessels, sir. They appeared simultaneously around our entire fleet. Vel turned to his weapons officer, a large alien with thick armor plating across his chest. Why didn't our sensors detect them before? The weapons officer studied his instruments with growing confusion. Sir, they seem to be using some form of stealth technology, but the readings don't match any known cloaking device. It's as if they were hiding inside ordinary space debris. On the screen, the human ships moved with impossible coordination. They danced between the massive alien vessels like leaves caught in a whirlwind, but their movements showed clear intelligence and purpose. Each small craft followed precise patterns, staying just beyond the range of the alien weapons. They're too small for our main guns, the weapons officer reported. Our targeting systems are designed for ship-to-ship combat, not for targets this size. Vel watched one of the human vessels dart between two energy beams, moving so quickly it seemed to bend the laws of physics. Fire everything, he commanded. Use all weapons. The space around the Harmony fleet erupted in light and energy. Massive, Plasma cannons fired streams of superheated gas. Energy beams lashed out like whips of lightning. Missile launchers filled the void with deadly projectiles. The combined firepower could have destroyed an entire planet. But the human ships moved like ghosts through the storm of weapons fire. They twisted and spun around energy beams. They slipped through gaps between plasma streams. They treated the deadly barrage like an obstacle course, dancing through it with movements too fast and precise for the alien targeting computers to track. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "the human vessels are attaching themselves to our hull." Vel looked at the tactical display. Red dots appeared across the outline of his ship, each one showing where a human vessel had made contact. More dots appeared with each passing second. "What are they doing?" he demanded. His answer came through the communication system. The same calm human voice they had heard before spoke to every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "Attention, Harmony Fleet vessels. This is Communications Officer Tom aboard the Defiant. You are now carrying approximately 50 fusion charges distributed across your hulls. Each charge is programmed to detonate simultaneously on my command." The alien bridge fell silent again. Several officers made distressed sounds in their native languages. Tom's voice continued, still perfectly calm and professional. "These devices are quite small, but fusion reactions tend to be very energetic. I'm told the explosion would be visible from several star systems away." Vel's skin had turned a pale color that indicated extreme fear in his species. "Fusion charges? They attached bombs to our ships?" "We call this Operation Mosquito Bite," Tom explained cheerfully. "Small targets, but a very deadly payload. Much like the insects from our homeworld, actually. Tiny, hard to hit, but they can bring down creatures much larger than themselves." The alien captain looked at the screen showing the human ships still moving around his fleet. Each vessel was smaller than his ship's escape pods, crewed by perhaps one or two beings at most. But together, they had turned his mighty fleet into helpless targets. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "our ships cannot fire on targets attached to our own hulls. If we try to destroy the human vessels, we'll damage ourselves in the process." Vel realized the terrible genius of the human strategy. His massive ships, built for long-range combat with enemies of similar size, were completely helpless against this swarm of tiny attackers. The humans had gotten so close that the alien weapons couldn't target them without destroying their own vessels. "How did they get so close without being detected?" he asked. The sensor operator had been studying his readings for several minutes. "Sir, I believe they were hiding among the asteroids in this system. Their ships are small enough that they looked like natural debris on our scans. But they moved simultaneously. How could they coordinate an attack across such distances without us detecting their communications?" "I don't know, sir. Their communication methods appear to be much more advanced than their ship construction would suggest." On the screen, Ambassador Kate Rivers appeared again. She was still standing in the meeting chamber, but her diplomatic smile had been replaced by the focused expression of a military commander. "Captain Vel, I want to make something very clear. My species didn't come here looking for a fight. We came hoping to establish peaceful relations with galactic civilization, but your threat of orbital bombardment was unacceptable." Vel tried to keep his voice steady. "You cannot threaten the Harmony Fleet. We represent the lawful authority of the Galactic Council. And we represent a species that spent millions of years learning to survive on a planet that tried to kill us every single day," Kate replied. "We got very good at turning size and strength into disadvantages for our enemies." She gestured toward the view screen showing the swarming human ships. "Every one of those vessels is crewed by volunteers who grew up hunting creatures 10 times their size. They learned to work together, to strike from unexpected angles, and to use their enemies' own weapons against them." Tom's voice came through the communication system again. "Captain Vel, I have a message from Admiral Brooks aboard the Terran flagship. He wants you to know that humanity is prepared to discuss peaceful trade relations and cultural exchange with any species willing to treat us as equals." "And if we refuse?" Vel asked. Kate's expression grew cold. Then you'll discover why evolution made humans the most successful predator species on our planet. We didn't get to the top of our food chain by being the biggest or the strongest. We got there by being smarter, faster, and more determined than anything that tried to eat us. The alien captain looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. His massive ship, which had intimidated dozens of species into submission, had been reduced to a helpless target by creatures flying in vessels that looked like they were built from scrap metal. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. Kate's diplomatic smile returned. "First, you will withdraw your fleet from our system immediately. Second, you will inform the Galactic Council that humanity wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations based on mutual respect and equal standing. And third," Vel asked, "you will spread the word throughout the galaxy that humans prefer peace, but we're very good at the alternative." Tom's cheerful voice added, "Oh, and Captain, the next time you meet a species from a death world, you might want to remember that we didn't get off those planets by being easy prey." The emergency session of the Galactic Research Institute had been called within hours of receiving reports from the Harmony Fleet. Dr. Quinn, the Institute's leading expert on primitive species classification, stood before a room filled with military, advisors, diplomats, and scientists from across known space. Her presentation began with a simple image on the main screen, a blue and green planet spinning slowly in the void. "This is Earth," she announced, "home world of the humans who recently made contact with our Harmony Fleet. Initial scans classified it as uninhabitable. We were wrong." Murmurs filled the room. A military advisor from the hegemony raised one of his tentacles. "Doctor, how can a planet be classified as both uninhabitable and populated?" Dr. Quinn touched her control device, and the image changed to show Earth's surface. Massive storms swirled across entire continents. Volcanoes spewed fire and ash into the atmosphere. Ice sheets covered vast areas while deserts baked under intense heat. "Earth is what we call a Class 12 death world," she explained. "The weather patterns alone should prevent complex life from developing. Temperature variations that would kill most known species happen there every few months. The planet experiences regular natural disasters that reshape entire regions." The image shifted again, showing Earth's wildlife. Creatures with massive teeth chased other animals across open plains. Giant predators lurked in dark waters. Even the plants seemed designed to harm anything that touched them. "But the environmental dangers are only the beginning," Dr. Quinn continued. "Earth's food chain is built around constant predation. Every level of life exists by consuming other forms of life. Most civilized worlds have herbivorous primary species that develop intelligence through cooperation and resource sharing. Earth's dominant species developed intelligence through competition and survival." A representative from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance looked disturbed. "Doctor, are you suggesting these humans are natural predators?" "Not just predators," Dr. Quinn replied. "Persistence predators. They evolved to chase their prey across vast distances until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. Humans can run for hours without stopping. They can track other creatures across continents using nothing but footprints and scattered clues." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Most galactic species tired quickly and preferred to avoid conflict altogether. The idea of creatures that could hunt prey for days without rest was deeply unsettling. Dr. Quinn continued her presentation. "Their planet forced them to become tool users on a level we've never encountered. They learned to turn every natural resource into weapons, shelter, or transportation. When they couldn't find materials they needed, they learned to make them. When their environment tried to kill them, they changed the environment." The screen showed images of human cities, with massive buildings reaching toward the sky and complex transportation systems connecting distant regions. "They didn't just adapt to their hostile world," the doctor explained. "They conquered it. They drained swamps, diverted rivers, carved tunnels through mountains, and built permanent settlements in areas that should be uninhabitable. Admiral Kress of the Defense Coalition leaned forward. This explains their unusual military tactics, but how does it relate to their technology? Their ships appear primitive compared to ours. Dr. Quinn smiled grimly. That brings us to the most important point about Deathworlders. They don't develop technology the same way peaceful species do. We build larger, more comfortable, more efficient devices. They build whatever works under the worst possible conditions. She showed technical specifications for human spacecraft. Their ships look crude because they're designed for environments that would destroy our vessels. Notice the multiple backup systems, the modular construction, the ability to repair damage using common materials. A xenobiologist from the core worlds raised a question. But surely our advanced technology gives us significant advantages. In response, Dr. Quinn activated a live communication link. The image showed a human workshop where a man with short gray hair was working on a piece of alien technology. He looked up at the camera with friendly eyes. "Hello there," the human said. "I'm Engineer Rick. Dr. Quinn asked me to demonstrate something for your meeting." Rick held up a standard Galactic Council plasma rifle, the same type carried by Harmony Fleet security forces. "This is a nice weapon, very efficient, very precise. But it has some design limitations." He began disassembling the rifle using simple hand tools. "Your people built this for ideal conditions. Clean environment, regular maintenance, trained operators. It works perfectly when everything goes according to plan." The assembled aliens watched in fascination as Rick separated the weapon into dozens of components. He examined each part carefully, then began reassembling them in a completely different configuration. "The problem is, things rarely go according to plan," Rick continued as he worked. "So we learned to build things that work even when everything goes wrong." Within minutes, Rick had transformed the single plasma rifle into 3 separate weapons. One looked like a compact pistol, another resembled a rifle with an extended barrel. The third had been configured as what appeared to be an energy cannon. "Now, you have a close-range weapon, a precision weapon, and a heavy weapon," Rick explained cheerfully. "All from parts of your original design. Plus, each one has twice the firing rate of the original." The room erupted in shocked voices. Admiral Kress spoke for everyone present. "How is that possible?" Rick shrugged. "Your species designed the rifle to work efficiently within specific parameters. We learned to push technology beyond its intended limits because our lives depended on it. When you're being chased by something that wants to eat you, close enough isn't good enough." Dr. Quinn ended the communication link and faced her audience. "This is what we're dealing with. Humans don't just use technology, they remake it to suit their needs. They see our most advanced devices as starting points for improvement." Yuba brought up the final image of her presentation, a tactical analysis of the Harmony Fleet incident. "Their small ships aren't a sign of primitive technology. They represent a completely different military philosophy. Where we build large vessels, for protection, they build small ones for speed and surprise. Where we rely on heavy armor, they perfect evasion and stealth." "But how did they coordinate such a complex attack?" asked the military advisor. "That's perhaps the most frightening aspect of human psychology," Dr. Quinn replied. "They evolved as pack hunters. Individual humans are dangerous, but groups of humans working together are exponentially more threatening. They can coordinate complex activities across vast distances with minimal communication." She paused to let this information sink in before delivering her final conclusion. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, we are not dealing with a primitive species that happened to achieve space travel. We are dealing with evolution's most successful predator species, armed with technology specifically designed for the worst possible circumstances and possessing a level of tactical coordination that we have never encountered." The room remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Kress spoke the question everyone was thinking. "Doctor, what do you recommend we do about this?" Dr. Quinn's expression was grim. "We learn to coexist with them, Admiral, because the alternative is discovering just how creative Deathworld predators can be when they feel threatened." The story of the Harmony Fleet incident spread through galactic communication networks faster than light itself. Within days, every spacefaring civilization had seen recordings of tiny human vessels swarming around massive alien dreadnoughts. The footage became required viewing in military academies across the galaxy. In the lawless regions of the Crimson Sector, pirate lords watched the recordings with different eyes. Where military commanders saw tactical innovation, pirates saw opportunity. The humans had revealed their methods. Now they could be countered. Warlord Grix of the Bloodfang Pirates called his captains together for a special meeting. His scarred face showed the confidence of someone who had terrorized shipping lanes for 30 years. "Look at these humans," he growled, pointing at the tactical display. "They're clever, yes, but they showed us how they fight. Small ships, swarm tactics, surprise attacks. Now we know what to expect." His lieutenant, a nervous alien with large eyes, raised a concern. "Sir, perhaps we should avoid human shipping lanes entirely. Their reputation—" "Is exactly why we're going to hit them," Grix interrupted. "Imagine the fear we'll inspire when word spreads that the Bloodfang pirates destroyed the mighty Deathworlders. Every merchant in the galaxy will pay tribute rather than face us." The pirate fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, each one bristling with weapons and carrying crews of hardened criminals. They had terrorized dozens of species and never met serious resistance. Merchant vessels usually surrendered at the first sign of pirates. Their target was a human cargo ship traveling through the outer reaches of the Crimson Sector. The vessel appeared on their sensors as a single large craft, moving slowly along established trade routes. Intelligence reports indicated it carried valuable minerals from the human colony worlds. "One ship against 12, Grix said with satisfaction. "Even Deathworlders can't overcome those odds." The pirate fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the human vessel, surrounding it in a classic attack formation. Grix opened a communication channel, expecting the quick surrender he had received hundreds of times before. "Human vessel, you are surrounded by the Bloodfang pirates. Prepare to surrender your cargo or be destroyed." The response came from a woman's voice, calm and unimpressed. "This is Captain Alex of the merchant vessel New Horizon. I'm going to have to decline your request." Grix laughed. "You have one ship. We have 12. Surrender now and we might let your crew live." "Actually," Captain Alex replied, "I think you may have miscounted." The human cargo ship suddenly began to change. What had appeared to be a single large vessel started separating into multiple sections. The cargo containers detached from the main hull and unfolded like mechanical flowers, revealing weapon systems and propulsion units inside each. "One." "What is this?" Grix demanded, staring at his tactical display in shock. The supposed cargo ship continued its transformation. The main hull split apart along hidden seams, releasing a squadron of sleek fighter craft that had been docked inside the larger vessel's framework. Within seconds, what had appeared to be one defenseless merchant ship became 20 separate combat vessels. Captain Alex's voice came through the communication system again, no longer calm, but filled with cold anger. "Warlord Grix, you just threatened human civilians. That was a mistake. The pirate ships opened fire, but they quickly discovered that fighting 20 small, fast targets was very different from attacking one large, slow one. The human fighters moved with the same coordinated precision their military vessels had shown, darting between energy beams and launching precise counterattacks. But this wasn't just military efficiency. The human merchant defenders fought with personal fury that surprised the pirates. When one of Grix's ships damaged a human fighter, 3 other vessels immediately converged on the attacker, striking with overwhelming force. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "these aren't military ships. They're armed merchants defending their own cargo." Grix watched his tactical display as his ships were systematically disabled. The humans weren't trying to destroy his fleet. They were taking it apart piece by piece, Weapon systems went offline, engines shut down, communication arrays were severed with surgical precision. They're not fighting to kill us, he realized. They're fighting to capture us. Captain Alex's voice confirmed his suspicion. Bloodfang pirates, you are now disabled and defenseless. Prepare to be boarded. You will be transported to the nearest Council Security Station to face trial for your crimes. Wait! Grix broadcast on all frequencies. We surrender! We didn't know you were Deathworlders! We surrender! The response chilled him to his core. Negative, pirates. Surrender was an option before you threatened human civilians. Now you get to learn why evolution made us the apex predators of our world. Across the galaxy, military commanders studied the footage of the Crimson Sector incident with growing unease. The pirates had been completely defeated, but that wasn't the most disturbing part. The humans had transformed a merchant vessel into a combat fleet in a matter of seconds. General Voss of the Hegemony Defense Force called an emergency meeting with his staff. How many other human cargo ships are actually disguised warships? He asked. His intelligence officer reviewed the available data. Sir, we've been monitoring human shipping traffic for weeks. Every merchant vessel we've observed shows similar modular construction. We believe their entire civilian fleet is capable of rapid military conversion. You mean their merchants are also their military? More than that, sir. Analysis of the Crimson Sector engagement suggests that human civilians fight with the same tactical coordination as their military forces. They may not distinguish between soldiers and non-combatants the way other species do. General Voss studied the tactical recordings again. Show me the communications from that engagement. The audio played back Captain Alex's final transmission to the pirates. Now you get to learn why evolution made us the apex predators of our world. Sir, his tactical advisor spoke quietly, I don't think the humans see themselves as soldiers or civilians. I think they see themselves as humans, and humans apparently don't accept threats to their people. The general leaned back in his command chair. Update our threat assessment for human space. All vessels are to maintain respectful distance from human ships, military or civilian. We cannot tell the difference, and apparently, neither can they. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, other predator species took notice. The Void Hunters, who had terrorized the galactic rim for centuries, reviewed intelligence reports about human tactics and capabilities. Their war leader, an ancient creature scarred by countless battles, made a decision that would reshape piracy. Throughout the galaxy, all packs are to avoid human space entirely, mark their territories as forbidden hunting grounds. But War Leader, one of his subordinates protested, they are only a single species. We have conquered dozens of worlds. The old hunter's eyes held the wisdom of a survivor. We conquered prey species, young one. These humans are predators like us, but they evolved on a world that makes our hunting grounds look like paradise. They are what we might have become if our world had been crueler. The message went out through criminal networks across the galaxy. Avoid human ships, avoid human space, avoid anything that might anger the Deathworlders. The small ships with deadly bite had earned their reputation, and that reputation was spreading, faster than any fleet could travel. In the civilized core worlds, governments quietly began reviewing their own military doctrines. If merchants from a single Deathworld could defeat entire pirate fleets, what could an actual human military force accomplish? The galaxy was learning to give the humans the respect that came not from size or numbers, but from the simple understanding that some species were born knowing how to turn any situation into a hunting ground. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted a more unusual gathering. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, but all eyes focused on the small section reserved for the human delegation. 6 months after first contact, humanity still occupied only a tiny portion of known space, yet their influence had grown far beyond their borders. Ambassador Kate Rivers entered the hall through the main doors, walking alongside delegates who towered over her small frame. But size no longer seemed important. The massive alien representatives stepped aside to give her group respectful space, and conversations quieted as she passed. Kate took her place at the speaking platform, looking out over the vast assembly. Behind her, through the great windows of the station, space itself told the story of how things had changed. Human escort vessels accompanied merchant ships from dozens of species. Even the mighty hegemony battle fleets gave human ships a wide berth, crossing to the far side of shipping lanes whenever they encountered vessels flying Earth's flag. "Honored delegates," Kate began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced sound system. "6 months ago, my species made first contact with galactic civilization. Today I stand before you not as a conqueror or as a subject, but as a representative of a people who came to the stars seeking knowledge, friendship, and mutual prosperity." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Harmony Fleet incident had become legendary, but this was the first time humans had addressed the full council. Kate continued, "We didn't choose to become your guardians or your enforcers. We simply wanted to explore the galaxy and learn from the wisdom of older civilizations. But the universe, it seems, had different plans." As if summoned by her words, proximity alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as the council's defensive systems activated. Through the great windows, ships began appearing from hyperspace, dozens of massive vessels with dark hulls and aggressive designs. The Council's military advisor, General Krex, rushed to his communication station. "Unknown vessels, you are entering. Restricted Council space. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came in a voice that seemed to growl with menace. "This is War Commander Thox of the Void Reapers. We claim this system by right of conquest. All Council vessels will surrender their cargo and withdraw immediately or face annihilation." Panic spread through the assembly hall. The Void Reapers were legendary, a nomadic species that had ignored galactic law for centuries, raiding civilized systems and disappearing back into deep space before military forces could respond. Their fleet consisted of 30 massive warships, each one designed for one purpose: destruction. General Krex looked toward the Council's emergency protocols, but Kate Rivers stepped forward before he could act. "General, may I suggest an alternative approach?" The military commander looked at the small human woman with desperate hope. "Ambassador, the Void Reapers have never negotiated with anyone. They take what they want and destroy everything else." Kate's expression held the same cold confidence she had shown to Captain Vell months earlier. "Perhaps they've never met proper motivation before." She touched her communication device. "All human vessels in the area, this is Ambassador Rivers. We have a situation that requires immediate attention." The response came from multiple sources simultaneously. "This is the merchant vessel trading post. We're ready." "This is the cargo ship New Frontier, standing by." "This is the passenger liner Stardancer, awaiting orders." Kate addressed the Void Reaper fleet directly. "War Commander Thox, I am Ambassador. Rivers representing the Terran government. This system is under Council protection, and these beings are our allies. I strongly advise you to withdraw immediately." Thox's laughter filled the communication channels. "A single human speaks of protection? Our ships outnumber yours 30 to 1. Surrender or die." Kate's smile held no warmth. "Commander, you seem to have made the same mistake everyone else makes when meeting humans for the first time. You're counting ships instead of counting humans." The space around the Council station suddenly came alive with movement. What had appeared to be ordinary merchant traffic revealed its true nature as dozens of human vessels began their now famous transformation sequence. Cargo ships unfolded into combat squadrons. Passenger liners released swarms of fighter craft. Even small personal vessels revealed hidden weapon systems. But this time, the human response was different. Instead of attaching explosive charges or disabling enemy vessels, the human ships formed precise formations and began systematic targeting of the Void Reaper fleet's weapons and propulsion systems. War Commander Thox watched in growing alarm as his mighty warships were surgically disabled. The humans struck with overwhelming precision, knocking out engines without breaching hulls, severing weapon systems without damaging life support, stranding each vessel while carefully avoiding lethal damage. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with confusion. "Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They're deliberately avoiding critical systems. It's as if they're trying to capture our entire fleet intact." Within minutes, the legendary Void Reaper Armada hung helpless in space, completely disabled, but with all crew members alive and unharmed. Kate Rivers's voice came through the communication system, still perfectly calm. "War Commander Thox, your fleet is now disabled and helpless. However, you may have noticed that all your crew members are still alive. This was not an accident." The War Commander's voice had lost its confident growl. "Why? Why didn't you destroy us? We came here to raid your allies." "Because, Commander, we're not monsters," Kate replied. "We're just very good at stopping those who are." Captain Roy of the human vessel Peacekeeper added his own transmission. "War Commander, humanity learned long ago that the strongest predator isn't always the one with the biggest teeth. Sometimes it's the one smart enough to know when not to use them." From his disabled flagship, Thox stared at the swarm of small, human vessels surrounding his fleet. Each one was tiny compared to his warships, crewed by perhaps 2 or 3 beings at most. Yet together, they had rendered his entire armada powerless in a matter of minutes. "What happens to us now?" he asked quietly. Kate's voice carried a note of genuine sympathy. "That depends on you, Commander. The galaxy has laws about piracy and unprovoked attacks on civilian stations. However, humanity believes in second chances for those willing to change." She paused to let that sink in before continuing. "Your people are nomadic by nature. You raid because you need resources to survive in the void between stars. What if there was a better way?" Ambassador Kate walked to the great windows of the assembly hall, looking out at the disabled Void Reaper fleet. The assembled council delegates watched in amazement as she began negotiating with terrorists who had terrorized the galaxy for generations. "The council needs security forces for the Outer Rim territories," she said. "Regions too dangerous for regular patrols, but perfect for people who know how to survive in hostile space. The pay would be legitimate, the work would be challenging, and you'd still get to travel wherever your ships can take you." Thox was silent for a long moment. "You would trust us with such responsibility?" "Trust has to start somewhere," Kate replied. "And humans have learned that former enemies often make the most dedicated allies once they understand they have something worth protecting." The War Commander looked around his disabled bridge, then at the human ships that could have destroyed his fleet but chose mercy instead. "What guarantee do we have that this offer is genuine?" Kate's answer came not in words, but in actions. She gave a signal, and the human ships began withdrawing from the disabled Void Reaper vessels. Within minutes, the raiders found their engines and basic systems coming back online. "There's your guarantee," she said simply. "We're giving you back your mobility and your choice. You can leave now and return to raiding, or you can stay and help us build something better." The council delegates watched in stunned silence as Thox considered the offer. This was completely outside established protocols for dealing with raiders and terrorists. Finally, the War Commander spoke. "Human Ambassador, my people have spent centuries taking what we needed to survive. The idea of earning our place through service is unfamiliar." "All the best things are unfamiliar at first," Kate replied with a smile. "But I think you'll find that protecting something is more satisfying than destroying it." 6 hours later, the first Void Reaper vessels formally enlisted in the Council's Outer Rim security force. Within a week, piracy in the sector had dropped to its lowest levels in recorded history, as word spread that the infamous raiders were now working with the law instead of against it. The incident became known throughout the galaxy as the Peacekeeper moment. The day humanity proved that their most dangerous weapon wasn't their ability to destroy enemies, but their ability to turn enemies into allies. Ambassador Kate Rivers concluded her address to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for generations. My species came to the stars not to conquer or to submit, but to find our place among civilizations far older and wiser than ourselves. We brought with us the hard-earned lessons of a world that taught us to survive, to adapt, and to never give up hope. She looked out over the vast assembly, her eyes meeting those of delegates from hundreds of different worlds. We learned that the strongest creatures aren't always the largest ones. We learned that the best predators know when not to hunt. And we learned that sometimes the smallest ship can cast the longest shadow, not through fear, but through the promise that good people will always have someone watching their backs. The applause that followed was unlike anything the council chambers had ever heard. It wasn't the polite acknowledgement typically given to diplomatic speeches, but the genuine appreciation of beings who had found something they hadn't known they were looking for. Protectors who chose restraint over destruction, guardians who had earned their position not through conquest, but through the wisdom to know when strength should serve peace. As the assembly dispersed, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation with requests for trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and security partnerships. The galaxy had learned its lesson about Deathworlders, and that lesson was simple. The most dangerous predator was one that chose to be a guardian instead. In the months that followed, human ships became a common sight throughout civilized space. Small vessels with crews that never backed down from a fight, but always looked for ways to end conflicts without bloodshed. The ships themselves remained, modest in size, but their reputation had grown beyond measure. The stars had their guardians now, and they came from a little blue world that had taught them that sometimes the smallest predator casts the longest shadow. Not through the fear it inspires, but through the hope it protects.